Hello everyone, welcome to my video. Welcome to any new subscribers, anyone who has just clicked on. My name is Marian Guevara and I love reading books, I love watching films, and this is just basically my platform to talk about the books and the films that I've consumed, that I've read and watched. And for today, as you can tell from the title, I'll be doing another addition to a series that I've started. It's basically where I discuss a book and its subsequent film adaptation, discuss the similarities, the differences, and all that. And for this episode, or for this installment, I've decided to do Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy and the film adaptation Tess, which was directed by Roman Polanski. Tess of the D'Urbervilles, I think, is pretty much considered Hardy's most well-known novel. It was published in 1891, and it was the second to last novel he ever published, I believe. So this book follows a young woman named Tess D'Urberville, who lives in relatively rural poverty. However, her life is changed when her father discovers that their family is descended from a very ancient and noble lineage, the D'Urbervilles. And not only that, but that they actually have some rich relatives. And after an incident where the family loses their only horse, Tess's parents decide to basically goad her into paying a visit to their rich relatives. It's a sort of means to help out the poor relations, so to speak. So anyway, she goes over to visit the D'Urbervilles, her relatives, and she meets her cousin, Alec. And Alec immediately becomes smitten with her and makes several advances that Tess consistently and constantly rebuffs. And one day, an incident occurs where it's heavily implied that Alec assaults her. Of course, it doesn't directly state it, of course, because the censors at the time would have a field day, but yeah, it's implied that he assaulted her. And after this incident, Tess decides to leave home in search of a means to find a way to sort of move past all of this, and she finds work at a dairy farm where she meets a man named Angel Clare, who she ends up falling in love with, and he ends up falling in love with her. However, Tess is constantly struggling on whether or not she should tell Angel her past, because she is aware of his sort of like moral upbringing, and she fears that should he discover her past, it could, she might risk losing Angel in the process. After I finished Tess, I quickly, asserted or, stated that this was one of my favorite classics, and it is more or less pretty hard to sum up all of my thoughts and what I loved about it. But I think the main reason why I was attracted to and really fell for this novel was the main character, Tess D'Urberville. This is a woman who is constantly going through trial after trial after trial amongst a very merciless society, but then each time that she gets hit, she has to more or less she shoulders her grief and just strives to keep pushing forward in a means to find some solace, some peace along the road. And I feel like that's such a human journey for everyone in life. She has fortitude, she has passion, but she also has a selfless heart, and in many ways, she just doesn't feel like a character. She actually feels like a living, breathing, flesh and blood person. And just the way that Hardy allows you to journey into her mind and her emotions, her thought processes, you understand where she's coming from. You understand the decisions that she makes. You notice the strength of her character. Yes, she may not be, as dynamic or special like many others, but it is this, fortitude and endurance in all the trials that she faces. How she deals it with sort of like solemnity, basically, that I just find so admirable and so relatable. There's just this beauty and subtlety to not only the plot, but also the characters that just I feel really needs to be read and experienced that way, because I just feel that the subtlety, the nuance won't be able to completely translate when you put it to a visual medium. I feel like you do just get more out of reading the book and looking at all the details that Hardy allows you to see and the way he lets you into the mind of the characters. Not to mention Hardy's prose. Hardy happens to have some of my favorite prose when it comes to classics. It's just so beautiful the way he describes the natural world and how he just imbues it with this pagan aura and how that in itself enriches the story and the themes that are being explored. It really is a special treat when you read the book itself, when you read from Hardy's lens, so to speak. So yeah, I love it. I love it. I hope I explained it well, why I love this book so much, but yeah. Now, moving on to the film, Tess, directed by Roman Polanski. This one came out in 1979. Normally, I talk about the differences between the film and the book first. One thing that I noticed while I was watching the film is that this just might be like the most, one of the most faithful adaptations of a novel I've ever watched. Like it follows the book quite well. There are like only a few major differences, or like one major difference that I could pick out. One of it is with Alec. In the novel, after him and Tess part, when she leaves back for home after the incident, the next time we see him is later in the third act, where we find out that after leaving Tess, he ends up being converted into a Methodist, and now he's a wandering preacher, a very zealous wandering preacher. However, as soon as he meets Tess, they meet by chance, he slowly starts to revert and goes back to, pursuing her. And yeah, that is not seen in the film. I think it's just cut, and I think it's mainly for time purposes. This film is almost 3 hours long. Speaking of which, I think another major difference is that a lot of the scenes are, when you compare them to the book, they're just shortened and condensed naturally, as expected. Like, that's not a fault. I will have to admit, there are a lot of transitional scenes that are just not shown. For instance, scenes like with Tess and her family are not really shown in the film at all. But yeah, if anything, it's just minor stuff. Overall, this is a faithful adaptation. The first thing I want to highlight about the film has to be the cinematography and just how absolutely breathtaking it is. It's gorgeous, immaculate even. I adore it, and I really like how Polanski dedicated time to having the viewer or the audience just soak in the natural world. It's just, he allowed the camera to either linger or pan, whatever need be, to allow the audience to just see the world through this camera lens and just really take it all in. Sometimes you'll just have these, hazy, sun rays or sunbeams. Then you'll have ethereal mists like covering the land, or you'll have scenes where the fields are just basked in the glow of the sun. It's just gorgeous, gorgeous film. And yeah, I'm just very appreciative that, he wasn't afraid to let it be the focus in a lot of shots, because it, as an adaptation of a Hardy novel, there should be emphasis on it. As for a period drama, because this very much is a period drama, I thought it was also excellent. I do feel that a lot of period dramas nowadays, they focus more on adhering to a style, or maybe appealing to more modern sensibilities, which is, fine. I'm not, going against that or saying that's bad or anything, but what I really appreciated about Tess is that you can see it was trying to really capture this time and place, the time setting, which is, rural Victorian England. And yeah, I thought it came off authentic. Also, Natasha Kinski, of course, who plays Tess, she's very well known. She is very well beloved in a lot of cinema circles, and this was my first time watching her. This happens to be her first role in a film, and yeah, I thought she did a great job. She, of course, captures Tess's beauty. I mean, whenever she's on screen, whenever you see her face, yeah, she captures you. I feel that she has this very innocent aura to her. But not only that, she has like this very calm demeanor that hides a very, a storm of emotions, and you can really see it in her eyes. And then there are moments where she does lash out, particularly towards Alec, and it's still very effective, and yeah, it's just very much effective. I thought she did really good in Tess, and captured the character quite nicely. Test of the D'Urbervilles, I understand, is not going to be for everyone, both the book and the film adaptation. I'm sure if you're not accustomed to classics, the dialogue, the pacing, or the social conventions that are very prevalent, you may not like it. But as someone who is a fan, I really, really loved it. And I thought that the Roman Polanski film did justice to Hardy's novel. And I feel like it hit the right points it needed to do to pay good homage to the source material. Yeah, Tess the D'Urbervilles is definitely a book to revisit, because there are just a lot of underlying themes that are just going on. One of it, I kept on mentioning it beforehand, is emphasis on the natural world. There's so much care and detail with the way that Hardy talks about the natural world, as if like he's almost imbuing it with human emotions and human characteristics. In a way, Hardy emphasizes a lot on the natural world and the world customs, because he saw that it was slowly fading away. With the introduction of industrialism and everything, this way of life he was so accustomed to and grew up with was being phased out. Whenever he's describing something like as mundane as just the rural practices, the farming practices, or just the descriptions of the grass and the trees and everything, I really do, I more or less get invested in it, because in a way, seeing how much care and detail he puts into the descriptions, it's almost like he's saying goodbye to a rural life, a rural way of life that is just dying, and that it will be eventually gone forever. So I really do appreciate that in his novels, and how Polanski was able to more or less tackle that in his movie as well. And lastly, one thing that I do appreciate that was present in both the novel and the book was just the tenderness. Hardy was very critical of Victorian society, Victorian morality, and Tess the D'Urbervilles is very much, when you read it, is very much a critique of, the hypocrisy when it comes to sexuality within the Victorian era. And you can just see it in the way that he treats Tess, the way he describes her. You really do get a sense of sympathy and tenderness with the way he discusses her. Even in the film adaptation, it never feels like Tess is at fault, or like it's never driven home, like, she's not viewed in an unsympathetic way. There is still, a tenderness to it, to the way we see her. And, if anything, if you're going to keep something from the original novel, it should be that. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. That's my discussion on both Tess the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy and the film adaptation. Thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. I really do like doing these kind of videos. They are fun. Leave down in the comments below your thoughts on Tess the D'Urbervilles. Did you, read the book? Did you watch the film? Did you do both? How did you feel? Did you took away the same things that I did when I encountered the story? So yeah, without further ado, that was it. And thank you. I'll see you next time. Bye.